Jerzee, the burning rose, the beginning, my childhood, too. Church, school, and repeat every week. Feeling alone in a house full of people. Back to seeking answers in the dark. But deep within me, something stares. A voice, a longing, a will to rise. And one day, I will find it. One day, I will belong. Still, even in the midst of all the pain, there was adventures. We made our own happiness. We ran through the community wild and unchained, making up games and stories to escape reality. I had family members who loved us and others who could not stand us, and they made sure we felt it every day. But one in particular, one who took the time to love me. No, not just me, us. Uncle Marvin. He was different. He was Pop-Up's youngest birth son. He has the party in the back, business in the front, flowing hair, pasty white skin, slim build, dark brown eyes, with the greatest smile and laugh. He loved to cook and dance. He saw me. He made time for me when others didn't. He took us on adventures, teaching us to find joy even in the smallest things. We explored the woods, picking berries to bake muffins and cakes. His laugh makes everything feel lighter. He had the kind of heart that made you forget the weight of the world, even if it was just for a little while. Hope lived in our hearts, even in the dark. Along our adventures, we discovered something that would change the way we saw the world. It started as a game, just another adventure, just another mystery. This one felt different. We heard them before we saw them. Drums, a deep, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat of the earth itself. The sound pulsated through the air, invisible hands pulling at our souls. It was like something out of a movie, calling us forward, daring us to follow. At first, we thought we were just imagining it. Maybe it was part of one of our make-believe games. But the sound didn't stop. The question became clear. Who was brave enough to find out where the sound was coming from? There were 6 of us. 3 stayed behind. But the rest of us, the bold ones that could not ignore the call, followed the sound of the drums, letting it lead us deeper into the unknown. We moved through the back streets, slipping through the narrow paths that Uncle Marvin had showed us. Cutting through the community behind our house, the sound grew louder, strong, vibrating through the trees as we ran. We followed it past the yards, through shortcuts, until we reached an old gate. Miss Jackson's house? We didn't know what to expect. Yet something beyond it called to us. An undeniable pull towards the unknown. We hesitated. We didn't know if we should enter, because if Miss Jackson called us, snooping around her yard, an ass beating would be waiting for her. But curiosity had already taken a hold, and despite the risk, we couldn't stop ourselves. With trembling hands, we pushed the gate open, and what we saw left us breathless. The women and men that stood before us, barely dressed, their voices raising in a rhythmic primal cry that sent shivers down our spines. The deep, thunderous beat of the drums echoed through our bodies, vibrating in our very bones. Was this real? How could it not be? Within every sound, every sight, every pulse of the earth beneath our feet confirmed its undeniable presence. The drums were right there. Real Africans. Real drums. Something was wrong. The way they were treated. The way they were living. They weren't performers. They weren't free. As young kids in the community, we always found our way into mischief, running around Miss Jackson's house, sneaking through yards and snatching fruit off trees of our neighbors. It was almost a rite of passage, testing boundaries, laughing as we darted off before getting caught. Miss Jackson, though, was different from all the other adults. She never laughed, never gave so much of a warning smile. Instead, she would burst out of her house yelling at the top of her lungs, her voice sharp enough to make us scatter like startled birds. We always thought she was just mean, the grumpy old woman of the neighborhood, who had no love for kids, no patience for our antics. But now, standing in our backyard, staring at the dark truth before us, we couldn't shake the feeling that maybe it was never just about us stealing fruit. Something about these people, these women, hit us differently. In some unspoken way, we could relate to them. Their displacement, their silent suffering. We spent time with them, listening, learning. Ghana, speaking Ga and Twi, and some were fluent in French. But the real horror was that they weren't here by choice. They had been smuggled into the country and forced to live in Miss Jackson's backyard like forgotten ghosts of some sort. How did she even get them here? What was she into? The more we thought about it, the more it made sense. Maybe this is why she was always so private, so mean, so on edge. Maybe this was the secret she was hiding all along. This wasn't cruelty. It was evil. Having them live in such inhumane conditions, treating them like nothing more than shadows, was beyond anything we had ever imagined. Something had to be done. Without hesitation, we took flight. We ran home breathless, wide-eyed, telling Papa what we had seen. But he didn't believe us. We got in trouble for sneaking off. But the drums called to us, still haunting our thoughts. So we made a plan. We had to prove that what we saw was real. We returned, but this time we weren't just watching. We convinced one of them to come with us. And when one came, another followed. We brought them home. I'll never forget Pop-Up's face when he saw them standing in our living room. He was in his recliner, pipe in hand, the weight of the day settling on his shoulders. And then he looked up, shocked, confused, realization. It didn't take long before he started investigating who they were. Why were they here? Why were they living outside like this? That was my first real encounter with something I didn't even know. I didn't even have a name for it yet. At this time, I didn't fully understand what we had uncovered. I only knew that after that day, everything in our house shifted. Their culture was different. Theirs was way overwhelming. And life already was heavy. It became even heavier. And then everything changed. After Pop-Up finished his investigation, he learned that the group was called the Omega 7, an African dance group confirmed. And how they got here was the mystery. Some were adults, some were kids, and some were crooks. But Pop-Up, with his heart too good for his own good, took them all in.